Alright, so my name is Justin LaRue. Thank you for all coming back, and here is the second part of my presentation. I first reviewed a simple universal definition of business, provided a lot of examples for business, and even had a makeshift alphabet of really unique business terms. Now I'm going to be discussing the history of business as human business has evolved with various accounts of human history. So we're going to start with ancient prehistory, when modern humans first came on the scene. Humans started off as simple creatures, mostly using sticks and stones for useful tools. What they did with those sticks and stones that led them to the discovery of many other useful things, such as fire and tools and building and farming, fell under a very simple circumstance of business for that early humans were capable of. And even before humans existed, animals conducted business of their own, such as leading packs or finding shelters or hunting food. Humans may have ate only plants in the beginning, but ended up discovering the benefits of meat to the human diet, such as vitamin B12 or carnets that efficiently improve the digestive system. So when they discovered how to hunt meat and whatnot, that's when humans became the typically omnivoric species that we know today. Stuff as simple as collecting berries or nuts or hunting for meat or fish is considered a business for people as simple as early cavemen. Then as humans began utilizing tools in organization more, they had less of finding shelters in trees and caves, and even began to build like huts and tents and whatnot. As humans began discovering how to build shelters, people started building villages or would move from one place to another nomadically. Whether early humans set up residence, they would conduct all sorts of personal or professional business, such as caring for themselves and others and their families, cooking food or making tools, bartering with fellow humans around them, hunting and gathering food, building more huts, etc. As villages grew into towns and towns into cities, humans became more and more efficient in otherwise manual tasks, whether strategically in numbers or with early technology. Some technology that existed back in ancient times were more advanced than us today, such as ancient civilizations such as ancient Egypt and the ancient Parthians knew about electricity. The Parthians had this clay jar that had this rod that is in it, which also has like a citric acid in it, such as like a orange or lemon juice to help build an electrical current. Like, they were pretty good with electricity even before Jesus was born. Humans learned to domesticate animals for either work or meat instead of the usual hunting method, which drove many iconically historical animals to extinction. Humans also learned to domesticate fire and make tools out of iron or stone. As the likes of the Romans and Greeks became more ambitious with conquering land around them, also considered conducting business because blacksmiths had to make swords and other weapons and gear for soldiers, like arrows and armor and shields. Soldiers had to prepare and store food, set up shelter, meet with each other, strategize their war methods as effectively as possible. Not to mention others took even more vulnerable risks and send messages back and forth between collaborating or opposing kingdoms or empires. As the Roman Republic grew and was converted into an autocratic empire that conquered everywhere around the Mediterranean Sea, more business was done. The emperors would constantly have exalted business done, such as communicating with high figures throughout the empire, conducting constructions of temples and statues dedicated to in their honor or in the honor of various gods that they have worshipped throughout these empires, planning war and trade strategies, and much more to keep their empires regulated. As the Roman Empire became too big and the business became too overwhelming for the citizens to handle, the empire was weakened, and which was a factor in the sorry about that. The Roman Empire weakened and fell to a series of invasions by lesser civilized barbarians, and no less or better. And that's how the Roman Empire fell. All right. After the Roman Empire fell, it was divided into several kingdoms, such as Spain, France, Britain, Scotland, etc. After the Roman Empire fell, it was divided into several kingdoms that either formed alliances or fought each other for control over what remained of the ancient empire of Rome, which ruled most of Europe and parts of Africa and Asia. These kingdoms handled business of their own, such as appointing generals or priests or other people of designated or exalted status to serve the royal families and the kings and queens and other rising emperors and politicians at the time. Much simpler forms of business and administration were prevalent due to the aftermath of the fall of the Roman Empire, sending the majority of humanity into a scientific and intellectual regression, which we now know as the Dark Ages. And it took a while for the concept of innovation amongst humans to be fully revitalized after the fall of the Roman Empire and the decline in advanceable technology or knowledge. As civilization slowly began rediscovering and reinventing and rebuilding themselves from the Dark Ages, humanity was sent to a somewhat constant and turbulent cycle of innovation where some new thing was invented during the course of somebody's life and would continue on to this day. Humans bettered themselves at the business of trade, war, exploration, religious expansion, such as the timely pristine Christian movements dedicated to the teachings of Yeshua, formerly known as Jesus Christ, that led to suppressive actions being taken against advanced knowledge, such as mislabeling even the brightest minds as the likes of heretics and witches, and having them all exterminated or executed, however term you use. It was very sad indeed. Like many people were like bright-minded and wanted nothing other to help others, and then these authorities would think, oh, this higher knowledge is evil. We need to get rid of that person because we prefer things to be simple and docile. And even such corrupt practices of conspiring against the brightest minds still goes on today. Things only got brighter and brighter for humanity and human business regardless. As innovations in art, science, philosophy, etc. were booming during the Renaissance and early modern ages, so did human civilization and business in general. A man named Christopher Columbus conducted business with a crew of four people set to sail by order of the King of Spain, intending to find an easier trade route by sea to India. He and his crew unknowingly arrived in what is now Florida, believing that they had finally reached India after months and crossed a milestone of their business plan, per se, their business orders. However, Christopher Columbus and his crew were naive. They didn't know that North America and South America existed. They thought the likes of Europe and Africa and Asia were the only land masses on this earth. They only thought of the earth as a third or 2/3 of the size as it actually is. He and his crew were naive. They referred to the Native Americans they encountered as Indians, mistaking them for the people they intended to trade with. Columbus and his men imminently discovered that they were in a completely new world in what is now America, and that they were nowhere near India, although that realization made Columbus more ambitious as it came to exploring and conquering this so-called new world. Although this time This time, Columbus was hell-bent that the new lands could be conquered in the name of their prospective kingdoms and in the names of the beliefs of Jesus, which was the primary mode of teachings in medieval and early modern times. They discovered many business opportunities and completely took advantage of it, either displacing Native Americans or mercilessly killing them in a very maniacal and genocidal fashion. Once again, very, very sad all for the business of pilgrims to be able to discover new worlds and discover new tactics. Of course, this was during a time when humans were too naive to know that all humans have a common ancestor. Of course, Columbus and his men were able to reach India in time, but not without a bunch of reckless decisions along the way, made out of pure stupidity, in my opinion. That it's for reasons like this that Columbus is not so easily idolized nowadays as he was like decades or centuries ago. Because a lot now we are mourning for the Native American tribes that he had harmed during his expeditions. Alright. As new lands were conquered, many of them slowly began declaring war or independence against the main kingdom, causing many colonies discovered to be converted into their own countries. Business began really booming all around the world as people now had pretty much full knowledge of the world at that point. Like they could travel from Europe to America to Asia to India and back to Europe. Strong governments with systems of human rights began flourishing. More businesses began booming. Governments began imposing strict limits and laws on business out of fear for out-of-control competitions. Like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the business world, especially in a universal sense, can be very unpredictable and sometimes cutthroat, excuse the term. And many of these now independent countries developed their own prospective movements to continue forming into the flourishing nations they are today, and with more and more businesses being built and managed in these countries, forming full-blown economies and causing major changes in the world financially and economically like we see today. As humans became more advanced in technology like never before, some began abusing it in ways that hindered the true nature of business into very flawed systems that could easily destroy businesses before they even started. Many business pioneers lost their minds due to the shift in employee availability and exploitable technology that caused a change in human ambition and willingness to work. It still holds up very much controversy as it becomes more advanced and more convenient for humans, sometimes leading to declines in manual business and labor, and sometimes like people can get addicted or too reliant or obsessed on it that they just start to disregard manual ways that may or may not be more effective, all because we prefer things to be easier. And we are reached the present. As technology has reached a peak in human history, it is also becoming very increasingly advanced with a constant cycle of innovation still turbulent from the late dark ages. Technology itself is becoming very convenient for humans, just about too convenient for humans as modern technology has been complicit in addictive or obsessive behaviors or personalities in teens and especially teens and young adults. Meanwhile, the practice of business itself becomes very sophisticated and domesticated to where almost everything is under strict scrutiny and control, pretty much beyond the true nature of business that we have always known throughout the millennia of human existence. Meanwhile, we've discovered new eco-friendly tactics and technologies that has helped parts of the Earth become greener since the 1980s, while other parts recklessly withered away due to pollution, war, and other detrimental human behaviors that, if not culled or resolved, could cause great catastrophe to the planet and disaster, and perhaps we can end up polluting outer space or the galaxy or something if we're not careful enough. Now we're moving on to the potentials of business in the future. Business has infinite potentials, as stated multiple times throughout the presentation, for the near and far futures. Business can either create new things or recklessly destroy things. So much is still yet to be invented, and there will always be so much to invent, even millions to billions of years from now. Considering modern humans managed to survive that long. A lot of future inventions are currently being predicted through the likes of science fiction and or a few other futuristic themed fantasy or fiction. The future of business is fickle in general and overall unpredictable. We could either attain a perfect utopian-like society or end up destroying everything around us. No one can be able to tell what the future holds for humanity and human business and technology, especially human-made artificial intelligence, reflective of human capabilities and flaws themselves, AI for short. Business will always either be a tool of creation or that of destruction, no matter how advanced or moral or capable we are. Right, now that we're done with the history and the futures of business, I'm gonna tell everyone about my own business project. It is a work in progress. I have been working on my own business project since I was almost 13 years old. It is known as The Wonderful World of Charlee and His Friends, or TWWOC for short. It is a social justice-based organization that implements universal tactics, especially though mentioned in the business ABCs or the history of business, to defy conventional limits and reach a higher potential while being able to opt working practically anywhere. TWWOC was founded while I was still attending Gompers Middle School in Lakewood, California, as an Instagram comedy skit series that sought to recruit more cast members during a very dire time by starting a club at McBride High School in Long Beach, California. That, due to liability reasons, ended up adapting into a club that opted to create custom comedy plays reflective of the original comedy values that were implemented into the original skits. My friends in the original cast sooner or later approved of this change in the project that we all have contributed to. Were many of them even advised me on the way, at least until other responsibility arose and I would have to work alone out of my respect for my beloved friends, which, as I may have mentioned before, I still see them like family, especially because we all share a common ancestor. Of course, the project is a work in progress and would need more support before we can attain a full-blown launch. About The Wonderful World of Charlee and His Friends. I ended up leaving McBride High School due to some personal issues that traumatized me to this day. But even at that point, I had discovered too much about the universality of business and the infinite potentials of business to go back on the promises I made to all my friends and family. So I continued TWWOC and I have even ideated countless plans for making videos, music, podcasts, establishing various types of extracurricular clubs that can be able to create their own content, host their own events, host their own fundraisers, appoint their own peoples. Establishing a portfolio of businesses in an efficient way that can allow for the creation of various jobs, specifically for those less fortunate to get a job and be able to earn a living for their families. I implemented more and more universal and versatile tactics and converted TWWOC into the universal social justice organization that it is working to be today. Like I mentioned before, the project is a work in progress, and it needs plenty of support. It still needs plenty of support. Like not to sound naive, but a lot of the stuff like this like past due for support. I also have various social media accounts for The Wonderful World of Charlee and His Friends, including a website, an Instagram, a Facebook, a Twitter, a Tumblr, a Patreon, a Discord server, a GoFundMe, a TikTok, and a merch shop, and a merchandise shop. In the near future, I plan on recruiting managers to manage all these social media sites, because even I gotta admit, that's a lot of social media sites for a business that is not doing too much at the moment. All right, and now that with all that out of the way, we're going to move on to our business activity. Today we are going to do a simple activity. We are all going to write on the whiteboards a bunch of our own business ideas, no matter how complex or outrageous they are. You are allowed to name a bunch of random business tactics you see in your own image. You can name a bunch of creative business ideas. You're allowed to be 100% creative with it as consistent with the values I implement in my business project today. You are also allowed to write down descriptions or diagrams of any business or business ideas possible, even on paper. This is to also emphasize the unlimited possibilities for innovation and how business has been beneficial to humanity for millennia and how it continues and will continue to be beneficial to humans and human nature. Good luck. End of presentation.